All right, everyone, and it is that time. It's another edition of Maryland's Cafe Society Radio here on YouTube. Welcome to the show. Of course, today is Saturday. It is the 5th day of June 2021 and first Saturday in the month of June. So welcome to the show. How are you doing? Does it feel like summer yet? I'm telling you, here it does. Yeah, we're experiencing the upper 80s and possibly 90s before the weekend is out on this weekend. But I am ready. Let me tell you, I'm more than ready. All right, and so, I was birthdaying last weekend. How did your Memorial Day weekend go? It came and went. It was so fast, but had a great time. As you can see, I'm showing off some of my flowers. And yeah, just had a wonderful time. And thank you all for the birthday wishes, the texts, the phone calls, all of that. That's how I spent my day, aside from grilling, just on the phone, catching up and responding to your messages and so forth. So thanks again. All right, and so today is a special day. We do have a guest who's going to be joining us, actually a couple of guests who are going to be joining us in about 10 minutes to talk about this topic, which is Cafe Talk, by the way, parent abuse. That's right, parent abuse. And so you'll be meeting my special guest and then more guests a bit later on to help me share more about this topic. But for now, in the mean between time, let's go ahead and get into coronavirus update, our cafe news. Of course, according to John Hopkins, as of this morning, about 10 o'clock, they are reporting more than 172.6 million COVID-19 cases worldwide. The number of deaths globally are just over 3.7 million. That's an increase of about 3 million from my last report over a week ago, right? Here in the United States, we've hit more than 33.3 million confirmed COVID cases. And in terms of deaths here in the United States, the number is just under 597,000. And that's about an increase of just 9,000 from my last report more than a week ago. So things appear to be getting better. As a matter of fact, here in the state of Illinois, we're going to be fully opening up next Friday, June 11th. So there will be no more restrictions, of course, depending on who you're listening to these days. Some are saying if you're vaccinated, you no longer have to wear your mask. Those who have not been vaccinated must still continue to wear your mask. And then, other medical professionals and scientists are saying that no matter what, you should continue to wear your mask, whether you're vaccinated or not. And so it's up to you. It's your personal business. But I'm going to continue to wear my mask probably for another year or so when I'm out in the public space. All right, and so let's go ahead and look at what the United States Labor Department has reported just on this Thursday. They said first-time jobless claims have declined to a new pandemic record low of just 385,000 in the last week. And so, again, that's a good indication that things are getting better. And in terms of our government and what's happening with this infrastructure bill, President Biden has indicated that he is open to compromise on his infrastructure plan. And so in an effort to push the plan through, he has offered to replace his proposed 28% corporate tax increase to a 15% minimum tax on corporations, which is less, or I should say 6% less than the current rate. Now, talks between Biden and the GOP lawmakers are still underway. In terms of other business news, well, we've suffered through many shortages in this last year, and the latest shortage is um, water. Yeah, it's hitting the water shortage is happening on the West Coast here in America. And, according to experts, they've been experiencing historic droughts all this year. Now, so far, California Governor Gavin Newsom has put 41 counties under a state of emergency in an attempt to drastically limit water use. And according to leaders of the Center for Watershed Sciences at UC Davis campus, the water levels of 1,500 plus reservoirs in California are about 50% lower than normal at this time of year, which translates to huge cuts to the water that farmers in the state use to produce over 25% of the country's food supply. Also, if things don't get better, by August, officials are saying that they may need to shut down a major hydroelectric power plant, which would put an extra strain on the electrical grid during the hottest part of summer. More than 15 million salmon have already been transported to the Pacific Ocean for fear that the fish would be able to swim in shallow water. And of course, 5 of the 6 largest wildfires in modern California history occurred during the 2020 wildfire season. Experts say the current conditions are much worse, and so this drought could potentially destroy the state's agriculture, wildlife preservation, and tourism industries. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll keep an eye on that for you. All right, and so the promise of supersonic commercial flights became a reality this week when United Airlines announced that it's buying 15 jets from Boom Supersonic. Yes, supersonic, meaning faster than the speed of sound. Would you fly on something like that? Well, listen, Boom's planes could cut flight times in half, they're saying. So they could get you from New York City to London in just 3.5 hours. And I think normally it takes about 6, 7 hours. All right, so catching a flight that quick hasn't been possible since 2003 when the iconic Concorde jet retired. And of course, it retired because it was so expensive. It was gas guzzling, and the loud booms made of course, disturbed many people across the country, and so Congress banned those supersonic flights. Now, currently, Boom and other supersonic jet startups are working on net zero emissions and the noise muffling technology. Yes, there are still some kinks that have to be worked out. And of course, after they clear regulatory checks, passengers may be able to hop on board one of these supersonic jets in the next 5 to 7 years. So stand by for that, you all. Taking a quick look at our stock market, well, the Dow is up 179.35 points to 34,756.39. The S&P 500 is up 37.0 points to 4,229.89. The NASDAQ is up 199.98 points to 13,849. Gold is also up $18.70 per ounce to $1,892 per ounce. Oil has increased 81 cents to $69.62 per barrel. And, things have been up and down. Of course, there was big news about AMC earlier in the week. And so we'll continue to watch stock market and see how things develop. And that concludes our cafe news as well as a look at our business news. And let's see if this was my guest reaching out to me. I think I see some folks in the green room, but we'll take a quick look in a second. All right. And so let's go ahead and see if we can get our guest on board for Cafe Talk, everyone. I'm so excited about this topic because it is a topic that is not discussed much in any community, let alone the Black and Brown community. And so um, let's go ahead and get our guest on board. All right. Okay. All right.
Oh, she's already doing
And hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, can you see us?
There you are. Hi, hon.
Hello. We're just going to give people time to get in.
Yeah, I started the show. I did my hellos and took a quick look at some cafe news, and so I thought I'd bring everyone on board. Who do you? So let me just before we get into who else is going to be on the screen, let's go ahead and get you introduced, Teresa.
Okay, so we're actually starting.
We are starting.
Okay,
all right, everyone. So this, of course, is my guest that I've been telling you about. Her name is Teresa Collins. She is not a stranger to the show. She's been here a couple of times. And of course, today we're going to be talking about that hot topic that we teased in Cafe Talk earlier, and that is parental abuse. But it all ties to this new book that she has published recently and is available on Amazon, and it's called The Song His Mother Sings. But let me just remind you about Teresa and who she is before we get into it. Now, Teresa Collins is the founder of ATO Publishing, which is founded upon the scripture in Revelations 12 and 11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. And so she is also founder of Involved Inc., a nonprofit organization, along with co-founder Terrence Patillo and her son David Collins. For 20 years now, they have been providing programs and services in the greater Joliet community. She also co-founded with Terrence Patillo Thoughtful Things, which is an online Etsy store providing t-shirts, home decor, and miscellaneous items with personalized quotes and sayings that uplift, encourage, and inspire. Now, of course, Teresa has authored and co-authored 9 other books. Oh my goodness, that is something, Teresa. And
Awesome.
yeah, there's more that we'll share with you in a bit, a little bit later on in the show about Teresa. But listen to this. Not only has she appeared on Marilyn's Cafe Society, but she has appeared on television and other radio shows across the nation. She, of course, earned her bachelor's degree in psychology with honors from National Louis University and is also an honorary member of Toastmasters International Speaking and Leadership Alliance. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming her to the show. What's happening, lady?
How you doing? It's so good to be here. I can't tell who's on. Have we let the people in yet?
So we have David there. Hi, David, which is Teresa's son. He's been on the show before as well. In fact, he's helping us with some behind the scenes efforts today.
Yes, some technical things.
I'll let you introduce everyone else. Now, should everyone who's on be on screen, Teresa?
Yes.
They're not in yet.
Okay. So we're getting everyone else on board, and then we'll go ahead and start with our conversation.
Do you want to make me the co-host?
Yes, absolutely. My son is asking you to make him a co-host so that he can go ahead on and start during the technical
Yes.
things.
Okay, let's see. That would be David.
Yes.
And we are going to make him co-host.
Click on what says Teresa Collins and then just says make co-host.
All right.
Click Teresa Collins.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, click Teresa Collins and make him co-host.
Okay.
Yeah, he's sitting right next to me, so he's on my screen.
Got it. All right. How's that, David?
Now I have power. Thank you.
Very good. He's got the power. He's got the power, everybody. Now, Teresa, you go ahead and introduce everyone else who is going to help us with this important conversation today.
Well, I have several people, which is my son. He read the book, David Collins. Jocelyn, wave your hand, say hi, Jocelyn. She's on David's computer. She also read the book, That's His Wife. And I have a very special person. She doesn't have her camera on, but her name is Sherelle Moore. She is a specialist in the field. She's all the way, I don't know where she's, I think she's either from Texas or Florida or somewhere. She's joining us from one of those states, I believe, but she's a specialist in the field for over 25, 30 years. She's going to be able to speak to us, tell of her personal story, and give us some insightful clinical information to assist with it. I'm trying to read the names. We have Terrence Patillo. He is definitely, he's a counselor. He's a specialist in the field, has been in the field for over 30 some odd years. So we're really looking forward to him working with us.
Terrence has been a guest on my show before, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That was the man you were reading about in the bio. He has helped me come a long way when I was going through my personal abuses and establishing myself as an authority in the field that I work in, etc.
Yes, yes. All right. So go ahead and complete your introductions.
We have Eric Patillo with us. He's known a lot of individuals that has gone through the abuse. He can speak on it. He saw some things, did a few things from my understanding. So he too also can speak on the matter, and I can't really see anyone else. Sometimes when it's too many people, you can't see everyone. But I think we have enough, and if someone wants to say something, they can raise their hand. My son is gonna go over the house rules so people can understand what to do, and we can, like they say, get it cracking.
All right, David, let everyone know.
All right, Maryland's Cafe Society. Live, laugh, and love. So we do have a few house rules as we begin this wonderful book discussion. First, the Zoom meeting is being recorded and it may be used for promotional purposes. So if you do not wish to participate in the promotions, please turn off your camera during the meeting. You leaving your camera on after this point will be taken as permission to be used for promotional purposes. 2, please remain on mute unless you're asked to unmute for speaking or other various reasons. But until then, we would like only the main people having the discussion to speak. When you're not speaking, simply click the little mute button, bottom left of your screen. It might be somewhere else. Dress appropriately. If your camera is on, we ask that if you're going to have your camera on, please be fully covered, from your shoulders down and dressed appropriately, nothing obscene, you understand. Please sit in a distraction-free environment. If you have to close your door, we know that sometimes we have children running around, so as much as we can, let's sit in a distraction-free environment so that way we can focus on the wonderful discussion and the things that will be coming forward. Feedback. Many of us will be speaking. Please only give positive comments and respectful feedback to the speakers. If you need to speak, please indicate that you want to speak by raising your hand And we will definitely make time. And this is an interactive meeting. But because, although it is interactive, we will have specific times where we will allow for comments. So when possible, please let's hold our commentary when once we get there. And I see a few people came in. How do you see? I see my big brother, Mr. Dr. Seegers just walked in. Will Skills, nice seeing you. And I saw John Watts. So I appreciate everyone coming in. But before we start, let's do a quick prayer. Dear Father, in Jesus' name, we pray that your will be done in this meeting. We ask that you teach us, give us the understanding that we need, and let a wonderful discourse, which will lead to healing, come through, and your will be done. In Jesus' name, thank God, and amen.
Before we get started, I would just like to say one thing about Dr. Sean Watts. He is a special honorary guest of ours. He's been in the field of education for a good 35 years or more. And I almost had to, put both hands together and ask him to please give us this honorary appearance, because he has the same passions and greater than many people regarding the urban plight. And I asked him to talk about chapter 12, Bellow Heights, because this is his passion and this is what he does. He's an author of many books, and one of the things that he tackles is the plight of the Black man. So it's very important, and I'm very grateful that he was able to make it. So thank you very much, Mr. Sean Watts, Dr. Sean Watts.
Thank you. I'm humbled by what you said. Thank you. Absolutely. I'm glad to be here, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest here with us. All right. Do we have another slide that we need to show? Okay. Yeah. So we're ready to get started then. So of course, as you all know, we're doing this open book discussion featuring author Teresa Collins. The song His Mother Sings, that is the book. And of course, our special guest, the distinguished Dr. Sean Watts and Terrence Patillo and many others are on the panel as we start this discussion. The next slide is basically the introduction, which you missed it if you're just joining us. We did a fabulous introduction, just giving you the background on the author, and we also had Teresa introduce the lineup. And so we'll go ahead and get started with our discussion. So let's try to remove the slide and just put all of our panelists on screen.
Absolutely.
And Teresa, I was so excited when you reached out to me and told me that you had another book, you're gonna bring it back. And you kind of briefly gave me a real brief synopsis of what the book was about. And I said, okay, I'm going to take a little time to breeze through it. And you looked at me and you said, oh no, read it. Something along those lines you said. And you had that serious look. And I said, okay, I better take some time. I need to just carve out some time in my day and read this book. And I did. That night, as a matter of fact, I read the book, in about 6 hours? About 6 hours. I had some interruptions. Yeah. And so it's an incredible fictional story about a young man who's learning the traumatic truth about his parents' lives and how he came to be in this world. But you say it's also a story about the mother.
Yes.
Yeah. The mother's love for this son. And it's just so well written. And every chapter, the detail, all the way to the how the chapters are introduced is just so well thought out. Teresa, where did the inspiration for this book come from?
The inspiration actually came I worked with youth in a disadvantaged program, Job Corps, for about 25 or more years. And I always worked with the male population. They were from the ages of 16 to around 25, 26 years old. And in the 25 years of working with these youth, I had an opportunity to meet a lot of the parents, and I would see the dialogue, the interaction that they had with their parents. And many times it was very toxic. It was abusive. A lot of the young men would, curse at their mothers. Some would, walk off while they were talking. Some would even hit their mothers. And I even knew a boy who he beat his mother up, bloodily beat her, and had hospitalized her. Oh, and so I've been seeing this over the years, down through, as I said, the last 25, 30 years or so. And it touched my heart to see why these situations would occur. And there was many different reasons why they occur, but no one talks about it. The mothers bow their head in shame. I had a father call me once, and he had to be honest. He said, "I'm afraid of my son. I don't know what he's gonna do to me. He's already fought me and whooped me. He couldn't beat his son. His son grew up to be much bigger than him, and he was afraid of him." And he talked to me about that. So this was one of the things that inspired me to write the book. I saw the abuse and the plight of the parents. There's a lot of information about child abuse, how parents abuse their children, but it was difficult to find good information out there about the opposite, parents being terrorized or abused by the children. So that was one of the reasons that inspired me to write it, to help parents help themselves and help their children.
My goodness, and it all lines up with what you describe in your bio as your life's work, and that is to help individuals that have suffered emotional trauma heal and, of course, be made whole. So, again, I am just, I want to say astounded, but that's not a strong enough word to use to describe this story of this young man. And I think I shared with you how taken aback I was as I was reading, especially the first chapter or so. The way he was talking to his mother, and, under the assumption that she's not hearing him. I don't want to give too much of the book away, but it was just a horrible thing. But at the same time, so captivating that you want to just keep reading to see what's going to happen next. What's the mother going to say? How's she going to handle him? What is he going to do next? And throughout the book, Teresa, you use so much imagery. For example, the title of the book, the song his mother sings, refers to the song, "Lord, Don't Move My Mountain," which is a popular song in a lot of Black churches. Lord, don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb, And as you continue to read the book, initially you're wondering, why is this her song? You quickly discover this is her song, but why is this her song? Do you want to give it away? Why is that her song?
I think that most of the people on here, as I look around, I think most of the people have already read the book. So what I would like to do, if it's okay with you, to get some feedback from the audience and see why they believe we chose that particular song. Because I think they know, and I would like to get that feedback from the audience. I'd like to have a little audience participation on that.
Yes, so raise your hand if you want to chime in.
And unmute yourself. Don't everybody jump at one time, though.
I think Eric's hand is up.
Okay, we'll do Eric, and then we'll do Sean Watts, Dr. Sean Watts.
Okay, can you hear me just fine?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, wow. you sure you want to reveal what the meaning is? That was so interesting during the reading of the book. Is, you know, every page that I turned, I said, when am I going to get to find out why she is choosing this song? You know, why is this her song? You know, there was not a page that I turned that I wasn't thinking about that. So that's really that was really something when I read the book that kept me going. But it's revealed later in the book that
if you can do it without giving away the complete crescendo, the ending, if you can kind of, you know, just pack it in just a little bit, but
okay,
no spoilers.
It's revealed that as much as he thinks that this is a stupid song, you know, he begins to signify on her about, you know, you don't need to move a mountain, you need somebody to help you out with the way you look, you know, and things like that. Okay. But as much as he feels separated from that song, later in the book, it's revealed that he's not as separated from that book as he thinks he is. And I really don't want to reveal much more than that because it was beautifully done and he is connected more than he will ever know.
Okay, good job.
Yes. I you know, I said the same thing, Eric. I was like, oh, why this song? Why this song? And I had all these ideas, you know, rolling around in my head. You know how we are in church, you know, our mountains are our problems, our issues in life. And we don't want to deal with them. We want the Lord to move the mountains. But you know, some of us sing that song, don't move our mountain, give us the strength to climb. And I think her reason is just so compelling, so compelling. Who else was on standby? Dr. Watts?
Yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that when I think of the song, and when I think of the mother's character, I think of just her being the epitome of kind of just being the spiritual figure in his journey. And when I think of a mountain, I think of it's the place where you go to reflect, and it's a place where you go to, it's a high point, the apex where you get to be closest to God. And so therefore, I think ultimately, this is where you go to remove yourself from all of the madness that's going on down on the mainland, and you find yourself in a place where you can sit still, reflect and listen. So I think there's some symbolism in the mountain for him. And so I think ultimately she was, that particular song was kind of being the undertone of the spiritual journey that he was taking place in and not realizing that he was taking place in. And so ultimately, you know, again, I won't give things away, but that's why I believe that it was a strong part of the undertone and consistent throughout the story.
Ooh, that is that's an awesome way to look at it. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And we had one more. Terrence Patillo, he also had his hand up on this one.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, so yeah, and not to, once again, I think we are trying to walk on eggshells, not revealing what really took place in the book. But I can say from a personal standpoint, and from being, you know, I was the type of guy growing up that when I became friends with people, you know, I became friends with their whole family, you know, so I have many memories of mothers of some of my friends, and especially my mother. She had a song, you know, and this song was something to get her through the tough times. It was a song to hold her together. And her song, the name of it was The Lonesome Train. And in it, it was talking about you ought to have been there when that train took off. And so what she was saying then and what she was feeling then, because my mother went through a lot of trauma and a lot of bad setbacks and things like that. She talked about that lonesome train. Sometimes it's lonesome riding that train. Sometimes other people don't understand what's going on that train. They don't know why you're riding it. But she sung that song whenever she was going through troubles, trials, and tribulations. So I think the gist of Don't Move That Mountain is the same as my mom. Lord, you sustain me. You keep me. There's some things that's going on that's been set in place that she has to take some, trying to stay off the plot too much. She got to face some things. She has to face some things. So Lord, help me face these things. Give me the strength, because it's too much. It's too much. And right now I can go either way. I can make it or I can break. Give me the strength to climb. And she was singing that song as an encouragement to herself to know that God, if you keep me, I'll be able to make it through.
That is so good. That is so good. But I just have to tell those who will see this show later, who are not with us right now, that everyone who shared their take on that, I'm sure was trying the best they could not to release the most profound reason why she sung this song. And I'm telling you, you are gonna cry when you find out. You're gonna cry. Teresa, where did that come? That had to come from the Lord. That had to come from the Lord.
Yes, one moment. My son is about to pat me to death, so I'm going to let him get his in.
Okay.
I get to comment too, right? We didn't pre-discuss, so when I read it, thinking about just that mountain, my mind goes to the passion of the Christ. How at the very end, right before he died, he prayed for the people who were in the midst of murdering him. He said, Lord, forgive them. They know not what they do, you know. And this morning in our morning devotion, my wife brought forth the scripture, Moses, in the middle of a mutiny, God told Moses that he's about to destroy all these people, so separate. And the first thing Moses did was say, Father, 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 please don't hurt these people. Don't hurt all of these people. And this amount of love that Moses had for the people he was put in charge of. Yeah, Israel, they was crazy. You know, they wanted to be like Egypt, but he taught them what's right. And he cared so much for them. He didn't care the fact that they were trying to do a coup against him. And then Jesus Christ, literally on his way to death, is just thinking about their souls. And at every moment he had a chance, he said, for those who know the scripture, he's like, I can call down a legion of angels at any time to destroy these people. He always had the power to end this and to end the people, but he didn't. He cared so much about the people who were giving him problems that in the midst of their evil, he prayed and tried to help them. And I think of people like a mountain. Sometimes our problems are our mountains. And although we would love to just get our mountains out the way, with a stroke of a hand, we can easily get rid of certain problems, or we can just pray them away. Sometimes we love someone so much, you will prefer to bear their abuse than to watch them be destroyed. And that's what I think about. That's what I think about when I read this whole book. Hopefully that didn't give nothing away, but kind of explains the character of the mother.
Yeah. It's something else. I mean, you know, and initially when I was reading, I was thinking maybe this boy has some mental issues, you know, and I guess that's part of it, based on, you know, his life and so forth. But Teresa, you creatively addressed a variety of social ills that plague communities of color in your book as well. Again, without giving away too much, can you just briefly talk about that, or does anyone want to chime in on some things that touched them When you think about, the problems that we are experiencing, have been experiencing in the Black community.
Absolutely. And again, I do prefer that the people in the audience do chime in. As I said, we have another specialist in the field, Sherelle Moore. We have other people that I see that definitely know. I see a Diane Washington. I don't know who Paula is, but I think it's my friend Paula. I'm not really sure, but I see Yolanda Collins. She's also an educator. She works with youth. Circe Collins, a retired veteran. All of these people we have here chiming in on. Then I have a very beautiful person, my mother, Sarah Bowie. And I really, truly would like her to speak because we had, we have brothers. I have brothers and siblings, and I saw what they said and I saw what they did, but I can't tell her story. So yeah, I'd like to have other people just chime in and tell their experience about what they got out of the book, the other social ills. And I kind of packed them all into one spot. They're spread out, but I packed them all into one chapter, in particular, chapter 7, chapter 12, Bellow Heights. And that also was a play on words, below your potential, below your height, below Bellow Heights. So that's what that was all about. So, but I'd like to have others just chime in and speak as well. So, and raise your hand and unmute yourself so that we can acknowledge you. And then we're going to have special words from, again, Dr. Watts. He's going to come forth and give us his synopsis of, coming his own way regarding this. Don't be shy. Where's Sherelle? Okay. Sherelle.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How is everyone?
Good morning.
I apologize for my fleece. I'm a little cold this morning, but this afternoon. But first of all, I'm honored to be a part of the group. I'm so proud of my cousin, Teresa. And as we were talking a couple of weeks ago, I told her I felt like she had been looking over my I went through the parental abuse with my son. It caused me to, eventually I had to distance myself from my son. It's very painful to talk about, but I'm not ashamed of it, because when you've done all that you can as a mom, when you've prayed, me and my husband, we did the best we could with him. But, eventually we had to send him to my mom because I had 2 other children in the house. And when you have someone like that, that's explosive, and you never know what they're going to do, what time of night they're going to do it. You never know when they're going to, just snap. It's hard to raise other children in a household like that. And, when I had got to the point where I think, Ms. Marilyn, you mentioned psychological issues. Well, I have about 10 years of psychology under my belt. 2018, I actually wrote my dissertation on parental abuse, and it was called Beyond the Shadows of Parental Abuse. And you will be surprised, as Teresa said, there are no resources for parents who are being abused in their own home. There's only things for children that are being abused, but it's not just parents. This thing, it spreads out to grandparents, because you have some parents who are maybe hooked on drugs or who are in jail, and you have grandparents raising these children. Yeah. You have grandparents out there who are getting beaten up every first of the month for their check. The research, I did tons of research, and it just makes my soul cry. When I think of how many people, especially in the Black community, because you always hear people say, oh no, not my child, I would do this, I would do that. before I would ever let that happen. You can't ever say what you would do unless you're in that situation, you know. And I just started to talk to my son maybe about a year ago. And it had been maybe 5 years since we had talked. But the song his mother sings, and that particular song, Lord, Don't Move My Mountain, but give me the strength to climb. I lived that every day for a good 10 years. I lived that because I didn't want the Lord to smite him or to destroy him, but I wanted God to show me what I needed to do in order not only to help this troubled kid, but to also help me to relate on how to deal with my other children, my marriage. I mean, he almost tore my marriage apart, you know, because their biological father, he was tragically murdered, but this was after I had left him. So I really feel like he had a lot of anger within him. Ms. Marilyn, you touched on psychological issues. I don't want to take up all the time, but I'm so grateful for Teresa for, you know, we've had conversations, Teresa, and you know, yeah, don't make the tears come, but I took him to a psychiatrist and a psychologist because I diagnosed him myself as being not only a narcissist, but also a sociopath. And I took him to another doctor, and the doctor said that he had 3 things going on for him. He said he's a genius. He scored clearly off the IQ charts. The doctor said he's one of the most handsome young men I've ever met. And he said that he's charming.
Yeah.
So he had 3 very dangerous sides of him that if I would just sit down, the doctor said nobody would ever think that this young man was capable of the things that you were saying. But I don't want to take up all the time, but that don't move my mountain, but give me the strength to climb. I live that, and I thank you all for hearing me. I will chime in later because I want to give other folks a chance to participate, but I do thank you for hearing me out, and thank you so much, Teresa and group, for your time.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing.
The next person, was it Dr. Watts? Who's coming next?
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. What's that I was speaking on? Because I thought I didn't raise my hand to speak on that particular part.
Oh, I am. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, we were basically talking about the variety of social ills that Teresa touched on in this book that plague the communities of color. And of course, Sherelle zeroed in on parental abuse, which is, you know, what we're really going to get into in a bit. Well, but were there any others in the book that stood out to you?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of things in that regards in terms of, obviously, we're talking about abandonment, parental abandonment, a young man dealing with what that felt like, carrying the mental pain and scars that go along with that, the lack thereof communication, family secrets, not really being able to not being able to give young people the truth, you know, or you're giving them something, but at the same time you're trying to protect them, you know, and that part of, we got a chance to see what that creates, that void that it creates. And of course, there's always a method to the madness of why parents make certain type of decisions, but there's also another side to it in terms of what the child is dealing with, that lack thereof, having the pieces of the puzzle put together for them and the emptiness that creates. So we saw some of that. We saw clearly there's a part, a line in the Bellow Heights chapter where I think it kind of sums it up, where it says, it's where human swine pray and preachers never pray. Just a play on words. But again, how we have some of these urban hubs where that sense of escape, that sense of that spirituality in God has abandoned this space, you know, where it's just become pure decadence, you know. So we see some areas of that in our communities. And so again, we saw that was one of the things that I picked up on. And then just one more piece in terms of just the ongoing ideology that the hustle is the only escape. The hustle being some type of illegal activity, being the only type of escape. That despite this character being identified, going back to what she just stated, of her son by a doctor stating that he was charming, he was all these other things, but that created also the double-edged sword of him being dangerous because you couldn't see him coming. Looking at this particular main character, Ace, who, as you begin to know this character through his background, you find out that he too has some things in his education background that allows him to have all these talents, all these potential things that he could do. But his only way of being able to use his talent is to find a way to pretty much take the old school hustle route of, I've got this talent, I've got this IQ, but the only thing that calls me is to use my hustle in some type of illegal game. And so again, I think that's another thing that we have to begin to work with young people to recognize that, you know, they can have these wonderful talents, being able to create apps, being able to do these mathematical complex computations. But if, despite God giving you those talents, all you can do is use that to figure out how you're gonna sell the latest kilo of cocaine, we got a bigger set of issues. And so those were just a few of the other things that I saw.
Very good. Very good. Do we have others?
Oh, okay. I want to make sure I get to go. I don't want to hog the mic. Dawn, you talked about the various social issues. First, Dr. Sherelle, that's your name?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. When you were talking about your son, and it sounds like you said it's been 5 years, and it sounds like maybe things are starting to get better and come back. So I'm thankful for that. He sounded so much like the main character in the story. I was like, wow. So it's amazing that you shared that. But when I read in the chapter, I think for me, it's definitely chapter 12, Bellow Heights, where most of those social issues are just kind of thrown at you. One of the things I saw was how early children, specifically young girls, are introduced to sexuality and trafficking, and how this is not just a global issue, it's also not just, it's a global issue, it's a community issue, it's even an in-home issue. And because I'm an educator, I see the effects of sexual abuse on children from a young age to, high school. And I've taught, as young as second grade. Right now I'm in the high school level, and you can pick them out when a child is molested and forced to do things that they are just not mentally, emotionally, physically ready to do. It throws off their entire lives. And it's such a tragic thing to see. And these monsters, and that's the only thing I can call them, these monsters, they're everywhere. You can't put a color on it, a socioeconomic class on it. You can't put a gender on it. It's ridiculous. It's terrible. And it perpetuates this cycle of poverty, the cycle of abuse. Because if you mess a child up like that, unless they get help, professional help, not just, they need spiritual help, they need professional help, they need emotional support, they're not going to do well in school. They're going to be angry, they're going to be vengeful, and they're going to turn to crime. And then they're going to become victimizers themselves. The cycle is going to go on. And that was addressed, and we don't like to talk about that and how prevalent it really is. So I thought that was something worth discussing.
Yeah. We have Eric and Terrence. I don't know who was first.
Terrence is in the
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Yes.
Yeah, so just really to piggyback off of Dr. Watts, you know, I'm a product and I want to say a product and a participant or former participant in this subject, because I grew up in a home where it was 4 boys and my mom was really strict. And the reason why she was strict is because she was from the South, and she went through a lot to get us to a certain place, and she wanted us to be better than what she had seen and better than what we looked like we were aspiring to be at the time. So she was really tough. And what she didn't know and what I didn't realize at the same time was that the way she spoke and the way she delivered her message, it really caused me to have a lot of low self-esteem, because I began to feel like I couldn't measure up to what she wanted. And then there was child abuse, molestation, different things like that. So as I began to get older, I began to rebel. And so as I began to rebel, I became abusive, you know, and I would say different things. I would curse at my mother, different things like that. I did some things that, you know, when I look back today, you know, I apologize to her for it, but I feel like apologizing all over again, but she's not here right now. But the only thing that separated me from the guy in the book was my mother, because some of the things he said in the book and some of the things he did in the book that we wouldn't reveal, my mother would have died before she let that happen. But I was on my way to trying it because I was so upset. And according to piggyback on Dr. Watts, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, I seen a guy beat his mother with a belt right there in the street in front of everybody. And the thing that happens a lot of time is when we hear a story like this, we look at the child, and you know, the child is a monster or the child is a demon or whatever we want to say. But there's things that in the child's mind justifies the way he's acting. He believes that there's a reason for doing what he's doing. That's what I felt when I was growing up. I thought it was a reason for me to retaliate or something like that. So what happens is, in the neighborhood that I grew up in, everybody, all my friends had came from a place, as I look back, from a brokenness, from some situation that happened in their family. And as Dr. Watts said, most of us turned to crime because we needed quick gratification. We wanted something to help with the pain. And coming against our parents and things like that, that didn't get it at a certain point. So we had to go out in the street and try to do something to make ourselves look like we were something. We had to do something to bring quick gratification. We had to create an image that we thought would make us be tough or look tough. And all the time we were hurting down on the inside. So I became an abuser, or close to being an abuser as I can get. And a lot of people that I grew up with in the same neighborhood, they did the same thing. One of my best friends actually just fought his father like they was two guys in the street. You know, those things, they touched me because I could never see myself going that far. But as far as I went, other people couldn't see me going that far. So it's a lot of issues in the neighborhood. Abandonment, as Dr. Watts said. There's a negative self-image. There's low self-esteem. There's all these different things that people are struggling with in the urban areas. And I think this book really opens this up even further for us to take a look at. You know, it's not about blaming anybody. It's not about putting fault on anybody, but it's to understand that there's a dynamic that's going on where people are hurting in silence. And these may be some of the reasons why they're hurting. So that's all I want to say on that.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just gonna chime in real quickly. Oh, I'm sorry, let Eric, I think his hand was up first, and then I'll come in. Go ahead, Eric.
Okay, can you hear me just fine again?
Yes.
Okay. Social ills. I was thinking that the book pointed out another important social ill that is prevalent in the urban community. The missing father, the father, MIA, missing in action. When I was growing up, I had some friends, and when I went over to their house to eat or to play, I didn't have anybody that had their father there too. Not one friend. And so in my neighborhood, that was a norm. And in the book, there's a chapter that is called It's Who I Am. And Aaron begins to explain to one of his friends, you're telling me this and that, but the reason that I'm out here is who I am. And he began in one of the passages, he talks about his father. And see, a lot of people that are in the street, Aaron is in the street, okay? We know that from reading the book. A lot of people that are in the street, they have the capacity to do some serious hurt to somebody. They don't play. If you find somebody who is successful in the street, those folks don't play. As they say in the street, they don't play the radio, okay? But there's a reason. We know that hurt comes from, or anger comes from a place of hurt. And when you feel like life has done you so wrong, you don't have any quabbles about unleashing something on someone else. Aaron said, hey, if I was meant to be something else, why was I left out here? The only point that he showed a little weakness, why was I left out here to be urinated on in life? And so with young men, mothers have a difficult situation, because when a young man, when their father is not present, you can't give him a tablet, 2 tablets, and tell him to wake up in the morning and everything will be all right. You can't, you can't call the plumber and fix it. There's some things that are going on with him and with his self-esteem that takes more than that. And the book touched on that. I like that a lot.
Very good. I'm so moved because, as Dr. Sherelle was saying earlier, and I think also Mr. P, he was saying that in the Black communities, this doesn't happen. You don't talk about that. Ain't no Black mother gonna sit up there and let her son talk to her. And all of the people that I've experienced have been African Americans. The boy that I know that beat his mother's face in, she was hospitalized for months. That was an African American woman. The man that told me, what do I do? He's asking me to help save my son. This is the same son, the reason why I have 2 dislocated discs in my back today. That same son jumped on me. So when I say that this stuff is real, it's real. And when we say it doesn't happen, we have people that we know in our families. It's not talked about. No parent wants to say, my son slapped me. My son kicked me. My son pushed me down. My son or my daughter tried to kill me. Nobody wants to say that, but it's happening in our families. I know family members, you know family members, where this thing is happening. This book has to get out there to let people know that there is hope and there is help and that you're not alone and that it's not just something because you're a bad parent, because you don't know what you're doing. There is something in our children that there's just no honor these days. When we talk about how we strayed away from the old path, the scripture tells us you go back over there. You go back to the old path and you see how things were done. I was sharing with somebody how back in the day when we used to look at television, the old black and whites, I'm always reminded of Lucille Ball and the Lucy Show. and how they in real life, they were a married couple and they had a son in real life. But on TV, when they got their show, they had 2 separate beds. They would not even allow us to see them sleeping in the same bed on television. But oh, look where we are today. We had a standard. There was a way we reared our children. We can look at, as I said, all of these old black and whites and see how things were done, but we've strayed away from that. In Bellow Heights, as we talked about, I did bunch it all together, but if you take your time and you look at that, we really see what's happening today. Every parent in that book, every mother was a teenager, was a single parent. Most of them got their children through rape. This is where we are these days. And this is why we have this issue that's rising. Parents don't understand that, because some of us, our parents were pretty decent. Our parents held a tight rope. The things that we see going on today, I've been with my mother for 60 some odd years. If she slapped my face today, I'd just be a slap 60-year-old. I wouldn't come back trying to, go toe to toe. That's my mother. I understand that. But these days, children are picking up guns, shooting their mothers. I know a lady, crippled, last month, when it was cold, threw her down in the ground, began to kick her and try to force her, now stand up, ain't nothing wrong with you. This is happening today. And yes, another African-American family. We have to go back, find that missing link, and not be afraid to tell the truth and put it out there, because people are suffering all over. People are suffering, and this is what we have to do. I can look at some of the names on this call. I know some of you can identify, and we're searching for help. What can we do? I need help. We have to start talking about it. Even as the scripture said, and they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimony. We can't suffer in silence anymore. We have to begin to speak out. We have to begin to talk about this thing and let others know, I too am a survivor. I too am a warrior. Just like the Me Too movement, we have to start speaking up. We don't want to die at the hands of our children. So I appreciate all of the feedback, and I put down the piece, and Marilyn, I turn it back over to you on this part so we can go on to the next phase. Yeah. And I want to hear everyone start speaking up. Yeah, so we can move on.
Yeah, it's a crying shame, that we are still in 2021 as a community of people of color dealing with all of these issues, and as opposed to issues of abuse and violence and so forth, and as opposed to things getting better. And I don't want to sound so morbid. My prayer is that these are outlier situations. Hopefully it's not the norm. Over the years, we hear a lot about spousal abuse or domestic violence against women, but the trend seems to be now, Teresa, as you share in this book, parental abuse. And it has a lot to do with, a change of times, but also a lot to do with I think, just the overall experience that Blacks have had in America, going all the way back to slavery. And, where did we learn this abuse from? You know what I mean? How did the Black family get so torn up and divided? And so I just want to, I also want to just point out, before we get specifically into parental abuse, as Teresa said, we're going to focus on this chapter, Bellow Heights. Which way am I turning it? There's the camera. Bellow Heights, which is chapter 12. And as you can see, as I was stating out, there's so much detail in this book on the imagery and so forth. The chapter 12, as you can see, is on a temperature gauge, and it's a negative 12 degrees, meaning below zero, which, as David and Teresa shared earlier, it talks about the depths of life, the lowest form of life. And so let's go ahead and just get into this parental abuse. Again, something that people in the Black community, communities of color, and maybe even in other communities don't want to talk about or share, but it seems that it is, and thanks to Teresa, it is being addressed. And Teresa and Dr. Sherelle and even Dr. Watts may be able to speak on this. Is it becoming more prevalent, or is it that the few people that it's happened to are beginning to speak out about it?
Just real quickly, I'm going to let the audience address it again, but one of the things I did do is I spoke mainly about the African American community, because we've always said it wasn't in our families, which we know it is in the families, but also in other communities as well. And I'm looking at a name, I didn't see it, but I see it now, Claudia Cox. I would like her to speak because she was one of the first people that read the book and called me with all of this emotion. And I would like her to just speak real quickly about the tyranny or the terror that can be in a home. I don't know if she can show her face or not. If you can't, you just can't, that's fine. But Claudia, are you there? Can you be heard? Oh, she said she's having audio trouble. I just saw it in the chat. She's having audio trouble. Maybe we can get her at another time. One more person. I see Paula. I just figured out who she was. Paula, she's also an author, a good friend of mine. Paula Mandisa, if you would like to speak, then if not, we'll just keep it moving. Paula? Okay, we're gonna keep it moving. I don't know what the deal is with her. Okay, turn on your mic. Who has the hand up? Oh, Sherelle, and then we'll, okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to touch base on the question that Marilyn asked. Is it more prevalent? It is more prevalent than you think. I interviewed 12 women and 2 fathers that were being abused by their own children and grandchildren for my dissertation, and they asked to remain anonymous. They asked that I change their names. So it is more prevalent than you think, but the shame and the not just wanting to come out and say that this is happening, that's what keeps people hiding in the shadows. Yeah. I'm one that I'm very vocal about it. If anybody ever asked me about it, I would say, well, yes. And I will sit them down and tell them the whole story, because that's where healing comes from. My healing, it not only came from the Lord. I'm very, faith-based Christian. I believe in God, but faith without works is dead. And I feel that a lot of my healing came from helping others. After I had my son, I also suffered from postpartum depression. And I really feel like the waters run deep, with my son and our relationship. I feel like that there are some things that I did or didn't do as a young mother. I was 19 when I had my son. So there were things that I did not know, what to do or how to do that contributed to his anger. But at the same time, I know that I didn't deserve, the things that were dealt out to me from him. But, just to touch on that topic, that yes, there are a lot of people. You probably have friends that are being abused and you don't even know it. because that's how great the shame is with parental abuse.
Yeah. Marilyn?
Yeah, I honestly hate to hear that because it's, abuse is a pressure that we as a people have to deal with in general, and I guess for a parent, I mean, anyone really to endure abuse, but specifically a parent, it's really hard to wrap your minds around it, but here we are in 2021 and it's being exposed, and thanks to Teresa, we have this book that will inform and enlighten you, not just on the parental abuse, but all the abuse, honestly, that led up to the parental abuse in this particular book, the song his mother sings. Um, Teresa, we've talked and you've shared that you have a history of abuse, and that your life's work is to help those not feel the shame, not have the shame, to be able to express what they're going to and seek help. Can you give us some tips, some information that anyone watching this who's experiencing specifically parental abuse can reach out to, or tips that they can implement in their lives?
The national hotline abuse, I think it's 1-800-799-SAFE, SAFE. They have added a segment on their hotline for parent abuse. That wasn't always the case. So people are starting to learn about it, and people don't know that they can reach out for that, but they have added that. And one of the things, the main things any of us can do is to not suffer in silence. We've got to be courageous enough and brave enough to tell somebody, to talk to somebody, because it doesn't matter who's doing it. Assault is assault, and it's a crime. It's not my son acting out. It's not my daughter just, having a moment. It's a crime, and it's abuse, and it needs to be dealt with as such. Now, if we have our children and they have other conditions such as mental illnesses and things like that attached to their abuse, then we need to get them the help that they need. The thing that we don't need to do is stand by and let it happen, because why should we lose two people? Why should the mother or the father end up dead or, ill or really hurt, tragically crippled or something like that, and then the child ends up going to jail? Why should we lose two people when we can actually save them both? If we understand the things that we need to do, and we have to act upon this issue. We have to really understand that there is hope and there is help out there. So don't suffer in silence. If you know of someone, if you are suffering, or if you know someone that is suffering, the first thing you tell them to do, that there are resources and that they need to reach out and they need to get help. It's the same way with the child. When we know of a child that is being abused, we entreat that parent to stop doing it. And if they don't, we reach out and we call the proper authorities to get that child the help that they need. And in the process, sometimes the parent can get help and the child. So why let both perish, or we can save both. So that's one of the main things I feel like we need to do, is put the awareness out there that this is a real social ill in our communities. It's not some taboo thing that is just you. And we need to speak out and create a platform so people can feel safe and they can feel, have that courage to begin to speak up and speak out on it. So.
Yeah, and as you can see at the end of the book, Teresa does dedicate a chapter to parent abuse, where she describes what it is, What are some signs of feeling intimidated by your child? Is one of the signs that you talk about, Teresa. And again, we're not just talking about, you know, a kid having a moment, an outburst. We know kids, especially teenagers, you know, they're going through their hormonal changes, transitioning from childhood to adult. So there are sometimes you will have blow-ups with your teenager, but these are ongoing things, correct, Teresa? Feeling intimidated, oppositional defiance,
Oppositional defiance disorder.
violent tendencies.
Yes. And one of the things too, we have to realize that regardless of what our child is doing, we are in charge. You know, we are the adult in the situation. So that makes us the authority, not the child. In the book, Aaron was a sweeping 6 feet muscle-bound boy, and his mother was a little petite woman, you know, barely 100 pounds soaking wet. And he used all of those violent tactics. He intimidated her. You know, he used brandishing ways. He, you know, held his fists up. He walked up on her. He yelled at her. He did all of these things. But we should not allow, as people that have knowledge, we should not allow any of those things to shake us. What we have to do is understand the facts. And the facts is we are in charge. And they will either do one or two things: get in line, or they're gonna have to keep it moving. We have to develop that courage. When my son started acting up, I think Julian was 14, 15. I remember we were coming home on a Friday night. He was back there talking about what he was gonna do to these girls and using all of this salacious language. And I was like, don't say that. Don't speak that way. He looked at me as if I didn't say anything. And he continued talking to David and his little brother. Yeah, so this girl, this, that, and the other. I said, if you say it again, I'm gonna pull this car over and I'm gonna slap your face. He looked at me, you know, that doesn't mean anything. So he said it again. So now I have to own up to my word. I pulled the car over and I grabbed back with everything in my power. I thought a piece of the skin or the black off of his face. He looked at me and turned me his other cheek and told me to slap that one. I think this boy is crazy. So again, I slapped that other side with all of my might. And he looked at me like, are you done? He went and got back in the car and continued his conversation. I knew that my ability to parent my oldest son at 14 was done. Because I was gonna have to shoot him, kill him, you know, stomp him at night when he sleep. I was gonna have to do something, but I could not allow myself to just sit there and be bullied by my own son. So I made the phone calls, and by the weeks in, he was gone. He had to go. He couldn't stay there any longer. You can do what you're doing, act like you wanna act. You just can't stay here and do that. There are rules here. So we have to be able to keep control, because the bottom line, regardless of what they do, we're in control. We're the adults, we're the parents, we're the ones that have the responsibility to rule and control our household and help them develop into mature, respectable people. That's our duty. And sometimes you have to use what they call that tough love. And so we have to get to that place in life where we stand up as a parent, as a loving parent.
Yes.
I never yelled at him, never went back off, never did any of those things, but I let him know that behavior is simply, it's not acceptable. And that was the end of it. And he stayed gone from my house for 5 years. I didn't let him back. I said, you can come home twice a year. There's the break you have during the winter months, and there's the summer break. You can come home 1 week on the summer, and you can come 1 week on the winter. And if you cut up, do one thing wrong, you can't stay. Mm-hmm. He never got to stay the full week. One day he got out of the car, he had the wrong thing on, wearing a thuggish gang-banging shirt. I told him, get back in the car, you can't come. So he missed that. He had to wait another 6 months. And we have to stand our ground. We have to be sure. 5 years later, he came back, and that's been He was 19, now he's 35. I've never had another day's trouble. I stood my ground. This is what it is, and that's what it is. And he changed. And he began to respect me, respect his brothers, respect my house, my rule, and my authority. But I had to lay that groundwork, and I cried almost every day that he was gone because he was out in the street. He was in Bellow Heights somewhere. But I had to deal with it. I had to deal with it. So that's life.
Yeah, yeah. I think you laid it down. You have to nip it in the bud when it first begins to happen. Otherwise, you lose that control, and you become a parent who's been abused. And boys are different anyway, right? Men on the panel, men are different. Men, particularly when they hit those teenage years, they're gonna challenge their fathers. They're gonna challenge men in general. And so, mothers have to put the men's pants on if they're a single mother and seek out help like Teresa did, right? And of course, lots of prayer.
I know. Before we go, and lots of prayer is so true, but since we're on the Bellow Heights, I really wanted Dr. Watts to speak on that. And then I also would like, because we're trying to close it out quickly, but I also would like to have, I see too many wonderful people that have not spoken, and I'd like to hear from you. Even if you can't speak on the topics, at least tell us how you felt about the book, your experience with reading the book. But I want to get some profound knowledge from Dr. Watts.
Thank you. There were some things that you spoke about. This is just for reflection purpose. And I think, Dr. Patillo, you brought it up. And I'm just reflecting on my own experience when I was a teen. I was raised with a stepfather, and I can recall getting to an age, I think it was probably about, I want to say it was 17, first time we got into it. But there was something that was interesting when I reflect back upon that experience. He came into my life when I was 3 years of age. And at 17, obviously, we had been together for 14. And even though my biological father is still alive and I have a relationship with him, this is the man who was in the house who was raising me. And so I can recall in that experience, he told me not to do something. I did it. He walked up on me. He swung on me. I had been in the streets. I had been a fighter. I grew up in a neighborhood that pretty much determined that I had to fight, even if I didn't want to. Being from Detroit off of the east side. And so, but my stepfather didn't know or had not experienced that side of me. And so we got into an altercation. And I got the best of him. I was in a position to get the best of him. But what I did is, this is where this rebellion versus going to the other side comes in. I had him, I could have hit him, but I just held him because I didn't want him to hit me. And I just held him going, because if I hit you, how am I going to stay under your roof? Because the moment I hit you and you recognize, well, clearly you recognize that I'm just as strong as not stronger. Clearly you recognize that I will fight if necessary, and I'm not going to let you hurt me. But I still got some common sense to recognize, but you're my father and I can't raise my hand to hit you. So I'm gonna just restrain. I'm gonna leave out of the house. I'm gonna get out of your sight for a minute, but I want to leave you with your pride, and I want to walk out not having been hit by you. And so that's kind of the way it went. Now I want to go back to what you stated, Ms. Collins, when you were talking about your son. And there were some things that I was looking to see, was the pattern of what you laid out in the book occurring with your son. You said you were dealing with him. He told you slap him on both sides of his face. Now I'm wondering, according to Brother Patillo, when he said that we don't have a lot of fathers in these houses. And so we have a different type of animal. Was his father there. And again, I don't know all of your backstory. I don't know all of what was going on in the dynamics of your life, but this is something that had me thinking, you know, again, based off of what you wrote. Was this young man dealing with all of these patterns that you pointed out in the book? Clearly you are a woman of faith. Clearly you are a woman who was instilled in your children some type of understanding of God and some type of understanding of respect. But where did that breakdown begin to occur with him when he took it upon himself to say, I can take the slap on both sides, it's not a big deal? Was it because, again, that lack thereof, father presence in his life? And even when you sent them off with the gangs, we talked about in the book how this young man, Ace, was tempted by the streets. And I don't know, from my understanding, you raised your children in Joliet. And again, I believe on the east side of Joliet, if I'm not mistaken. And was there a gang presence that possibly was being more alluring to him than what you were able to offer? So Bellow Heights, as you stated, you know, we see these type of issues occurring all throughout the urban community. But because you specifically were speaking on your son, and specifically was kind of, whether you knew it or not, giving us the real live version of Ace, you know, and what he was able up against. Again, we know that your son was not able to go to the extreme of being so bold as to put his hands on you physically, because you sound as if you handled that situation. I'm just curious about the backdrop in terms of the correlation between him and some of the dynamics of what we saw with this character in the book.
Yes, absolutely. The backdrop going back to Bellow Heights, I did my best to shield my children from that environment, but it was inevitable. We lived in a neighborhood that really was infested with gangs. I remember one night, again, it was on a Friday night, we were coming home and our entire block was riddled with gangbangers. It was at least 300, maybe 400 gangbangers. They were just all over, they were just everywhere. They were from one corner, about 2-3 corners. They showed up. They were just sitting on our porches, leaning on our cars. They were smoking, drinking, doing everything. And everybody was afraid. Everyone was just in their houses. And when I came, I was afraid to pull up in the driveway because I didn't want them to grab me when I got out, or I didn't want them to know I came home. And, you know, I drove around once and I said, no, I can't go out like that. This is my crib, I'm going home. So I went home, I went in my house, I waited for about an hour before I called the police. I tried to, because I wasn't gonna have it. Y'all got to get up out of here. I don't care what's going on. Whatever y'all got going on, you're gonna have to take that somewhere else. You can't bring this like that. Don't bring it this raw and this real. So I called the police and put him out. But yeah, my son, Julian, he was a part of that mess. He chose the street. When he was born, his father and I were together. They had a close-knit, he was a good father for a few minutes. He was right there wherever he went, my son went, and then it went awry with us, and it was goodbye to all of that good time I had with my father, and he became angry about that. When he got into the schools, he went to Washington Junior High, and he got treated unfairly by teachers and different people like that, and it had a toll on him, and he became similar to Aaron. He became very angry and defiant and all of these things, and he had a mind of his own, and he developed that same attitude. This is who I am. You know, I'm the type of person, I remember going downstairs, I was hearing all of this knocking going on in the basement. I went down there to see Julian is down there. He hitting not a punching bag. He had got the metal garbage can top and rigged it up some kind of way. Just punching on, thank you. He's in there punching this garbage can top, making his knuckles tough and rough. He was doing all of these things to make himself become Bellow Heights, to make himself become hard and, you know, separated from a loving environment. He wanted to become hard to protect himself. The bottom line was he was a gentle person, but he had to be tough out there in the streets. So yes, he was affected by all of that, selling the drugs, gang banging, talking to girls like they're absolutely nothing, right down to the point where he got to the place where he was beginning to disrespect his own mother. And I tried my best, just like Avia in the book, she tried her best to not call her son out of his name. I never called any of my children out of their names, except it was loving names, sweetheart, tender, precious, baby. I never called them stupid, dumb, ugly, and I just refused to do that. But none of those things seemed to matter when he had this missing link that Eric Patillo talked about. The father wasn't there. I remember Eric's oldest brother, he was preaching a funeral. And I think it was one of the young people that had died at a young age. He had gotten shot execution style. And he was preaching and talking at that funeral. And he was saying that all of these young men are out here in these gangs. But the bottom line is, after all of that tough talk, he said, I stood by, because he was one of the original four-corner hustlers. So he knew about the street. And this one thing he said in that message all of these years ago, it stuck with me. He said, these young men are out here doing all of these things. But what they're really saying is, he screamed that out, that this is the real issue, that missing link in the family. So the father was there. And when Julian had his father, my oldest son, he was developing fine. When he lost his father, that's when all of the other side, the chaos, the anger, began to hurt people. And he was hurt that his father was gone. So this was the thing that drove him away. That missing link, that father element was missing.
I think it was also very interesting in the story, and I know you're about to close out, just how important the presence of the males are, particularly in the lives of these young men. How when Bluff came back to the neighborhood, yes, he enjoyed seeing his friend, he enjoyed being around his brother, but how he felt that it was important to go get that male energy and to go back to that corner where those old heads were, to get that energy from them, to get that, whatever that confirmation was, that he felt that even though I've been away, this is the place that I went to get fed, and to get my spirit fed by these old men and their stories, and them giving me life lessons. Because a lot of times when these young men hear these older guys speak, and they're telling the stories of their great conquests, these young men are internalizing it as, well, this is actually how you handle these situations. This is the type of persona or bravado that I need to have. So again, just who we surround, and again, I know we all know this, but who we surround to be able to tell the stories to the children is such a crucial part, because again, the way they internalize that ultimately can play a crucial role in how they begin to personify their character in their everyday lives. So again, I'm gonna stop there, but thank you for giving us that true version of and that correlation between your son and that character.
Absolutely. Okay, just one more thing. If we have, because we're really trying to end it up in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. Yes. So if we have anyone else, I see it. Okay, we can see it in the
No, I think Cardi wants to read it.
Oh, okay. We have someone put something in the in the chat because their audio is messing up. And then if we have anyone else that wants to speak that hasn't spoken already, we'll give you space to do that. And then we're going to end it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
So, thank you. Can you all hear me well? I know the audio goes up and down, in and out. Perfect. Miss Cox wrote something. Her audio was off, but she wanted to share something regarding the different communities that you see parent abuse in. And these are her exact words. This topic is so rarely covered anywhere. This is happening in all communities, not just among people of color. This is especially challenging for single mothers with teenage sons because the sons eventually cross a line and become physically stronger and more powerful than their mothers. All women need resources that help us to be more empowered in dealing with bullying, abuse, setting and enforcing boundaries, and finding affordable resources to help our children and ourselves and our partners deal with their anger in a more constructive way. All teens rebel. That's part of growing up. But rebelling can be done in a constructive way too. We all need tools for conflict resolution to help us constructively address issues on our jobs, among family members, and in our communities. So that was from Claudia.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome, Claudia. Thank you for chiming in. Thank you to everyone who has chimed in on this topic of parental abuse and just in general social ills that our communities face. And I thought it was very compelling that Dr. Watts mentioned the fact that I guess in more general term, men seek out other men. Men primarily listen to men. But what I thought was interesting in the book, though, was that Bluff had his dad in the house, but he gave the men on the street corner more. It seems that he valued what the stories that they had to share more so than, I guess, trying to spend time with his own father. And just in general, I think once again, men, particularly men of color, have unusual pressures. There's different manifestations of how they handle racism and the various institutional racism that they endure, coupled with the absence of the father or the absence of a strong male role model. All of this kind of ties together, and men just in general sometimes don't really know how to process their emotions. They don't know what to do with their emotions. And then when you compound it with all this drama and trauma in life, it's a bad recipe for disaster. And so again, Teresa, you just knocked this one out of the ballpark. Man, this has just been really good conversation. Again, the book is the song his mother sings, and it just touches on so much, but it also she also provides tips and help, and that 1-800 number that was shared earlier for parental abuse. If you know someone or if you are dealing with it, it's 1-800-799-SAFE. Teresa, you have closing remarks?
My son has a closing remark.
Right, and I'm going to be quick. I just wanted to say, just based on what you just said, yeah, men do look for other men. And I just wanted to say, I was privileged to have men in my life who mentored me. I watched my older brother make poor decisions, and my mother made sure that I at least had some men somewhere. And I want to thank two men who stepped up in my life. Uncle Terry, that's Terrence Patillo, he stepped up. And Dr. Sean Watts, when I became an adult, he stepped up, mentored me professionally. And I can say I did not go the way that my older brother went, but that's because men who weren't my father took an interest in me, taught me so many things. And those two men are two of the men I have to give honor for. And that's why I work hard as a man now. I try to be an example to other young men I see coming up. So I would just say for the ladies, one of the tips, if you know a positive brother, positive man somewhere, you got a son who needs it, like connect them. I never forget the day my mom said, talk to Miss Patillo. It was a great time. And Seegers, Mr. Watts, he found me. He used to say, hey, little brother, come here, let me talk to you. My first day of work. I never forget. So there is a solution, even if a father's not there. There can be positive brothers out there to help you out.
Amen.
It's a good book.
Okay, so
appreciate you, brother.
Closing words. I just want to thank everybody for coming and participating, even those that set back. My mother, nothing but mad love for you. You're a strong woman. You survived it all and you're still loving. You didn't let any of the things you suffered or went through, you didn't let any of that change you. The only thing I remember coming from you from a young girl to this day is love. And I have nothing but mad love for you. I want to give you your flowers every chance, every opportunity I get. Teresa Collins, I see you out there. You're always giving me love. You know, I appreciate that. That's my sister-in-law and my sister in love. I appreciate that. There's other numbers there that I don't know who they are. Galaxy J7 Crown, Galaxy A11. Somebody said that's someone, Denise Sims, much love to you, baby girl. But I appreciate everyone. I thank Marilyn's Cafe Society. She has a YouTube channel with the same name, Marilyn's Cafe Society. Check it out. You know, she's a positive African-American young woman. When I met her almost 30 years ago, over 30 actually, I was going through it. I was a young mother just trying to make it. And she saw me and she said, that sister right there looked like she's going somewhere. And she's been kind to me from that day to this day. So I appreciate all of the help, the assistance that I've had. I thank Mr. P for stepping up, helping me with my children, being a positive role model. I thank Dr. Watts. David just gave me some revelation, you know, about how you were there and how he looks up to you. So thanking everybody, Ramona and different ones, Paula, I thank you guys, Thelma, Williams, Mama, I think that's your sister. Her camera is not on, but I think that's your sister. I think that's Auntie Thelma, all the way from Florida. So Panos, I don't know who that is. Oh, from Greece. Oh, look at that. I didn't know that. We thank you all the way from Greece. Oh, look at that. Yeah, Thelma, that's your mother. That's your sister, Mama. So we're so grateful for everyone. She's waving at you, Aunt Thelma. Look at that, too precious. Y'all gonna make me cry. But spread the word. The book is not a book just for something for us to just read and be entertained by. We are actually endeavoring to help people. I look at it as an extension of my life's work, an extension of my ministry and my charge as a woman, as a human being that is renting space on God's green earth. I feel like this is one of the ways I can pay back my time being here. So let's spread the word. We thank everybody for coming. And that's my time. I put down the piece.
Well, Teresa,
Yes.
let me just say this to everybody who will read the book or who has the book, to go back and reread it, because there is so much detail in this book. You really just need to give this book all of your energy and attention, because there's just so much detail and imagery in this book that you have to look for. And symbolism, absolutely. And then also stand by, because Teresa has the sneak call coming up, and that particular book is going to take a closer look at the mother, Avia, her story. My imagination is all over the place, Teresa, with where you're going to go with how you tell her story. But her story is going to blow your mind. That's all I got to say. I just want to thank Teresa as well for stopping by the show and for bringing all of these wonderful people with you. Thank you all. Normally, when I record my show for my YouTube channel, it's just me. And then later on, everybody else catches the show. But this has been so wonderful to have live people on. I thank you for participating. Thank you, Teresa, for bringing them on. Thank you, Dr. Sean Watson and Terrence Patillo and Sarah B. Thank you, Miss. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you all. I appreciate it so very much. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to close out my show. And I do invite you to hang around for that if you would. I don't want it to look like everybody disappears as I close out the show. It's only going to take a couple minutes. It's only going to take a couple minutes. But once again, before I do that, before I wrap up, Teresa, do you have anything else?
No, just thank everybody, spread the word. If you know someone, if you don't know anyone, spread the word, put the book on your Facebook, share it on your Twitter, all of these things. The same thing with Marilyn's Cafe, just spread the word. We're two African-American women trying to do something positive, making something great out of the rubble we have left over. We're rebuilding. So just, you know, be kind to us and help us out. We love you so much.
Yes, and if you want to get the book, the link to Amazon is in the chat. So before we go, make sure you go copy that link. And I'll also be sure to put the link in the comment section of the YouTube show channel. So it'll be there for people who want to, you know, get it. All right, and so once again, thank you to author Teresa Collins and all of the wonderful people here. Thank you, David, for manning some of the technical aspects of the show. This has just been so wonderful. Thank you all for hanging out with us here on Maryland's Cafe Society. Before we go, I do want to remind you that we're in a new month, the month of June. And so for those who know my show and have been with me, this year we've started learning a new word every month. And so the word for this month is Empyrean, which means relating to heaven or the sky. All right. So when we think about June, we think about summertime, the beautiful blue sky, and of course, heaven and imagination and all that means. So Empyrean, practice using that word this month.
Yes,
and of course, we're just building our vocabulary. And once again, I want to promote, if you want to promote any business, product, service, or anything that you have going on using my show, just send an email to producer@marylandscafesociety.com. Also visit the website, marylandscafesociety.com. There you can link to me on my various social media platforms. I am a blogger as well, and so you'll get the link to my WordPress blog, which is Maryland's Cafe Society. And of course on the YouTube, check it out. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And before I go, I always tell the audience what love is. And I usually use a little cartoon that I clip from the newspaper. And so today's love is feeling, what does that say? Feeling wanted and loved. Feeling wanted and loved. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes.
Right. So make sure you get that feeling this week, all right? And if you don't do anything else, everyone, be sure that you live, you laugh, and you love. As always, it's a pleasure and a privilege to hang out with you. I'll see you on the next show. Peace, everybody. Take care. Thank you. Mwah. Mwah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So hang on.
Yeah, I think we're